have an aide to former Senator Tony Strickland, who understands the legislative process. Unfortunately, Tony did not win his election bid for Congress, and we are now represented by the famous Second Amendment advocate, Julia Brownlee. She's not a Second Amendment advocate, by the way, so we have one less vote in our favor. So Sean is going to explain to us a bit about how the legislative process works, how bills are introduced, a little bit about the background, how they get through committee, how they finally get voted into law. It's kind of like making sausage. Sean Parosky.
I need to steal the microphone just for a second before Sean comes on board. The wonderful gentleman who won the dinner actually is hosting a dinner party tonight himself, so he cannot attend. So I'm going to re-auction the dinner for Stuart Rhodes after Sean Parosky comes on and speaks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, George. It's great to see so many passionate advocates for the Second Amendment out here today. I wanted to thank you all for taking the time out of your busy Saturdays to come out on a nice day like this and come to a rally to support the Second Amendment rights. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the legislative process, how it works, and how you can get involved to make your voices heard, because that's the most important part. Because if we don't allow folks who support the Second Amendment to have their voices heard, then a lot of these bills will go through and will just sail through without having your opinion heard. So let me tell you a little bit about how the legislative process works. The legislative process, the bill starts in the House that it originates in, so in the Assembly or the Senate. It then goes on to the committee process, and different committees handle different bills. A lot of the gun rights bills will go through the Public Safety Committee, and this is your first chance to get involved. You can contact the different members of the different committees, the different senators and different assemblymen who sit on those committees, and that's your first chance to have your voices heard on that bill. Even if you don't live in their districts, you can still contact them and talk to them and let them know your concerns about the bills and let them know that you want them to support the Second Amendment. What's even more helpful is that if you have relatives who live in their districts, if you go onto the various members' websites, they will tell you where their districts are and where they represent. If you have relatives, if you have friends that live in those districts, call them up, encourage them to talk to their senators and their assemblymen, because they will be more likely to listen to their own constituents than someone who lives outside of their area. Even so, you can give your opinion to them. Once the committee is done reviewing the bill and looking at it, they'll move it on generally to the other committees, depending on what the subject of the bill is, or they'll go directly to the floor of the House that it originated in. So the Senate will go through a Senate committee, then go to the floor of the Senate where it will be voted on. If it passes, it then goes on to the other House. So you have another chance now to talk about this bill, this time to your assemblyman. If it started in the Senate, it goes to the Assembly. Now you can talk to your Assembly member about the bill. And you can call up the members of the Assembly Committee that review that bill. And so you have an opportunity, 4 different opportunities, to talk about a bill to your elected official. And so you can do that. You can write letters to them. You can call their office, both their district office and their Sacramento office, and have your voice heard multiple times. This is a great opportunity to have them hear what you have to say about this particular bill. And even if they don't agree with you, you can still flood their phone lines with constituents who are opposed to this, and maybe it will get them to stop and think. Maybe they will say, maybe we should take a look at this and not risk getting voted against by a lot of our folks who we want to see elect us next term. And so then that is your primary reaction to these bills. Another way you can get involved is write letters to the editor. You know, even though a lot of our newspapers and media sources aren't friendly to us, you can still have your voice heard this way. Writing a letter to the editor is a great way these days to hear and to have your voice heard, even if they don't print your letter. Because a lot of newspapers now are online, and their letter sections are online. The Ventura County Star is a great example. They print only a fraction of the letters in their print edition, but on their online edition, they print a number of other letters on their website. So even if you don't get in the print edition, you will still have your letter more than likely seen on the website. And so that's where more and more people are consuming their news now. And so you'll actually have a greater chance of having your letter and your voice heard in these debates. The third way you can get involved is get involved with local candidates who you support. If you find someone who you think agrees with you, volunteer for them, make phone calls for them. Get involved with your local Republican Party or your local Libertarian Party, whoever you're affiliated with. Support those folks who support the ideas that you hold dear. And that's the best way you can get involved and try and push back against this, because the folks who are up there fighting against these things can't do it by themselves. They need your support. And so if you can get involved, write letters, contact your elected officials, support those candidates who support you. This is the best way that we can to fight against a lot of these bills that are coming down that will threaten our Second Amendment rights. So I want to thank you again all for coming, and thank you, George, and the rest of the organizers for allowing me this chance to speak. If you have any questions, I'll be around for a little bit afterwards. Thank you.